If you've been wanting to create a budget but feel overwhelmed by spreadsheets, I've got you covered with a free Google Sheets template that does most of the heavy lifting for you. And in just a few simple steps, your budget will be ready to go. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Layla. I am a financial coach as well as YouTuber, and I talk about all things personal finance. I have been budgeting myself for years, and that is the reason why I was able to pay off all of my debt. It's why I've been able to increase my net worth and gain control of my finances. And I promise you that budgeting does not need to be a scary thing. It can actually be quite enjoyable. The first thing you'll want to do is grab my free budget template. So that is linked down below in the description box. Pause the video here, go get your free template, and then come back. I'm going to be walking you through creating a budget for the upcoming month specifically. So keep that in mind. Every month will look a little bit different. So when you're creating your budget, you want to think of the month ahead and any particular expenses for that month. So here we are on the template. As you can see, there are a few options for you to choose from. If you've never budgeted before, if you've never tracked your spending, or if you've never used Google Sheets or spreadsheets in general, then I'm going to recommend that you use the weekly budget tracker. Step number one is to list your income. So you're going to want to list your salary, so your full-time job, if you have any side hustles, if you have any sort of child support, anything that is coming into you, you want to be sure that you're including that here. So I'm just going to throw in some random numbers, say that making $4,000 from work, side hustle is maybe $400 in the month. And then, yeah, if you have anything else coming in, there is space for that. If your income is irregular, list the minimum amount of money that you expect to receive in the month that you are budgeting for, or the lowest amount that you've ever received. Same with extra income or side hustle income. I would list the amount that you are certain you will be receiving in the month. It is better to be conservative in these situations. And you'll notice that I have two sections in the income part. So this top part is actual income that's coming to you. So these are things that you would be paying taxes on, or it is money earned basically. And then there's this lower section up at the top here that just says total, but it's in the income category. And this is for things that are not necessarily income in the month, but it is money coming to you that will support your budget. So for example, if you have some sinking funds or any sort of savings accounts that you will be pulling from in the month to cover any of your expenses, that's something that you would list down here. So let's say you're going to be pulling from a travel sinking fund. So I'm going to put from travel SF. You're thinking you're going to take 600 from there. So that's what we're going to put under expected. And of course, the actual column, we will get to that, but that's when you are actually going through the month, earning your money, and you will fill in those values as the month goes. So then you will be adding up all of your income. The spreadsheet will do that for you. But if you're ever curious how this works, there is a simple formula in here. So for this top section, it is equals sum, and then you would just highlight the cells to include that to be calculated in the sum. And then same with down here, this is taking the sum from up above and then adding in anything from down in this section. If you ever want to see what formula is being used in my template or any templates, you can just click there and you will see it up here, or you can double click and it will show up in the actual cell and also highlight the values that are being used. Most people do prefer to budget with their net income, so that is the money that is coming to you after taxes and any other deductions. But if you would prefer to use your gross income, that is perfectly fine. Just be sure to list your taxes and other deductions, such as health insurance or 401k contributions, in your expenses. So that leads me to step number 2. Step 2. List all of your expenses. Now, you may be somebody who prefers to organize things by fixed expenses, variable expenses, debts, wants, so on and so forth. I really just prefer to have a single column and list everything out and then organize things by category roughly. So for example, I'll usually start with housing. So that would be rent or mortgage. I'm just going to throw in some random numbers here. So let's say paying for rent, and that is $1,500. And then, there may be some household expenses, like if you're buying cleaning supplies or that sort of thing. So maybe $50 for the month. Utilities, any sort of utilities, you could separate those out or just clump them all together. I'm going to clump them all together and just call that 300. So yes, anything related to housing, I would kind of lump those together. And then I would move on to something like groceries and put in what I'm budgeting for that. Food out, put in what I am budgeting for that. Maybe you want to do 100, so on and so forth. If you need help trying to think of all the potential expenses in your life, there is actually a tab on here labeled budget categories, and it covers just about every category of expenses possible. And quick little tip here, you can also add in some color to categorize things. So for example, going back to the housing, if you want to highlight these and then change the color to, let's say we're gonna do purple, and that is what represents housing. And then we can highlight the food categories, and we'll use orange, and that represents food. And you can keep going down your budget if you prefer to separate things out like that. And oftentimes when people are new to budgeting, they really struggle with budgeting because they just have no idea what they're spending in a certain category or just what to expect for each category. And if you're in that situation, then there's a couple of options for you. So you could either go back and look at some data, meaning you need to add up your spending from the past 3 months or from the past 6 months or so in a certain category to get a more realistic picture of what you're spending there on a monthly basis. The other option is to aim for a goal for a specific category. So let's say that you're struggling to come up with a budget for groceries or for food out, and you're thinking, I would really love to stay under $500 for the month in groceries and under $200 per month on food out. So that's what you could put as your budget. And as you continue to budget on a monthly basis and track your spending on a monthly basis, which we will talk about, then you will have a better picture of what you're actually spending in those categories, and your budget will just get better and more accurate. I will come back to these columns off to the right. So these columns labeled week and then difference and actual. But for the sake of simplicity and just to use this as an example, these are all the expenses that I'm going to list for now. And what's going to be happening here for the sheet automatically, all of the numbers will be adding up down at the bottom. So total expenses will be adding up. That'll be taken care of for you. So once you finish listing all of your expenses, putting in your budgeted amounts, it will total up at the bottom. And you can again see the formula by double clicking on it or just clicking into the cell and seeing it up at the top. Step number 3 is to subtract your total expenses from your total income. This will show you if you have money left over or if you are overspending and need to make some changes. The spreadsheet will be calculating that for you automatically. So this here says income minus expenses. So that will be taking your income and then subtracting all of your expenses added up. If the difference is greater than 0, then the text will turn green. If the difference is less than 0, then it will turn red and show a negative value. So I could show you if I just plugged in a random 3,000 here, it will go negative and turn red. You will end up in one of the following 3 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is that your income does not cover your expenses. This means that you are in the red, basically, and you would end up either going into further debt or not being able to pay a bill or 2 in the month. Scenario number 2, you are able to cover all of your expenses with your income, but there's no money left over for you to make extra debt payments or to save money, to invest money, that sort of thing. Basically, you're living paycheck to paycheck. Or you're in scenario number 3, which is where your income is able to cover all of your expenses and there's still money left over, meaning you could make extra debt payments or save some money or invest some money. No matter which scenario you are in, I highly suggest you cut or optimize your expenses. If you're looking for ideas on how to reduce your expenses, I will have a video linked down below. And reducing your expenses doesn't just necessarily mean lowering your budget in a certain category. That may be necessary for certain things that you have in your budget, but this is more so things that are going to take a little bit of effort. So it could even take a couple of weeks for some things if you have to shop around for different car insurance or switch phone plans, that sort of thing. That will help you to reduce your costs, but right now your budget is not set in stone because you still need to optimize those expenses. With certain categories in your budget, you can only go so low. So if you are deciding to go that route and lowering what you're budgeting for certain categories, then just be sure you're being realistic. If you're enjoying this video or find it at all helpful, I would really appreciate if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more personal finance content. Step number 4 is to track your spending. So at this point, you've already made your budget, but moving forward, you need to track your spending. And I would argue that this is more important than making the budget itself. You can sit down and make a budget every single month, follow the steps that we just went through, but if you don't know where your money is going, those budgets are pointless. So for example, if you set a $500 budget on groceries and you're not tracking how much you actually spent on groceries, it could be way inflated. You could be spending $800, $1,000 on groceries and have no idea, but you feel like you are being productive and making a difference with your finances because you're budgeting that 500 figure, but in reality, it's not what's actually happening. And that is exactly why tracking is key. Tracking your spending is not something that this sheet will do for you automatically. It's going to take some dedication and effort from you. So going back to these columns off to the right, these weeks represent the weeks of the month. So what I really like to do is change these to dates, and I typically do Monday through Sunday, just depending on the day that the month starts, whichever month you are budgeting for. I am filming this late December 2024, so I'm gonna create this as if I'm making a budget for January 2025. The first of the month starts on a Wednesday, so we're just gonna start with that. We're gonna put 1 through 5, so that's Wednesday through Sunday. And then we're gonna do Monday the 6th through Sunday the 12th, Monday the 13th through Sunday the 19th. And then week 4 will be a lot bigger, so it will be Monday the 20th through Friday the 31st. Or you could add in a 5th column in here for a 5th week if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna leave it like so. Then as you spend money throughout the month, you want to keep track of the category you're spending the money as well as the day of the month that you're spending money. So again, let's pretend that this is January 2025, and let's say you went grocery shopping on the 4th of January. So this column represents 1 through 5 of the 1st through the 5th of January. So you went grocery shopping on the 4th, we're gonna go to groceries, and we're going to log that you spent $75 in groceries, okay? If you end up spending food out on January 10th, for example, this has the 10th within this week. So then we're gonna go to food out, and you spent $20 on food out, so you're gonna log that here. And you'll notice that off to the right, these numbers are changing. So before, this said $400, so I can clear this out and show you how it looked before. This said $400, but when we put in that $75 spend, it now decreased to $325 because the difference is subtracting all of your spending throughout the month from whatever you budgeted. So it's a good way to keep track of things. And then this number off to the far right under the actual column, that is how much you've actually spent throughout the month. So if you were to keep adding to this, you do another 70 here, you do an 85 here, you can see both of those numbers continue to change. So this is adding everything up, and this is taking the difference of your spending from what you actually budgeted. Now, if you end up going over budget at all, that will turn red, and it will also be a negative number. This is the importance of tracking on a regular basis. Personally, I track my spending in real time, but if I spend any money, I'll open up Google Sheets on my phone if I'm out and about, or if I'm on my laptop and I need to log some spending, I'll log into Google Sheets, plug in the spending that I did. Usually it's within about 24 hours or so, and I'm good to go. This is definitely a habit that I have built up, and it works really well for me. And I understand that it can take some time to build up that habit if you're interested in doing so. But I do recommend at least tracking your spending on a weekly basis, preferably every single Sunday. A couple of other things to call out here. If you are right on budget, so let's say you pay your rent of $1,500, that is accurate, the cell under difference will turn white. So you're not over budget, you're not under budget, you are right on budget. If you need to log multiple numbers under one cell, so let's say you go grocery shopping twice in the week, or you go out to eat a couple of times in the week, what you'll want to do is a formula. So let's say you went and got food out multiple times from January 13th through the 14th. So you'll first put the equal symbol, add in however much you spent on food out. Let's say it was $25, and then you're like, oh, I went and got food out again, but it was on the 18th of the month. So then you will come back in here, you can double click to pull that formula back up, put in a plus sign, and then log how much you spent on food out. Let's say it was another $12, and hit enter. So now it is adding up, and you could continue to add to that if necessary. That goes for any category, any cell that you have on here. And then one little tip to kind of keep things clean: if you don't spend money in a category or within a week for whichever category, I just recommend leaving it blank, because oftentimes if you put in just a bunch of zeros, it kind of looks messy and it's hard to read things. So I would suggest leaving them blank instead of putting in the zeros. Step number 5 is to rinse and repeat for every month moving forward. Budgeting absolutely gets easier with time, especially if you are tracking your spending, because now you're going to have all of this data to refer back to. You're going to be more aware of where your spending is going, and your budgets will be more accurate. Every month will look a little bit different, which is why you want to create a new budget every month. So always keep the upcoming month in mind when you are going to create your budget, because there's going to be some months where you have holidays, you could be traveling one month, you have car registration due, a couple of birthdays in the month, so on and so forth. So to recap, using my template, list all of your income, and then it will add up all of your income for you. List all of your expenses. It will add up all of those expenses for you. Review the difference between your expenses and income, because it's automatically going to calculate that, and then optimize or reduce your expenses where you can. Track your spending at least on a weekly basis, and then repeat for the following month. So that's all there is to it. I've been using these simple templates for years. You can see it on my channel. I share my own budget on a monthly basis. By building a habit around budgeting and tracking and just keeping things simple, I've been able to pay off over $82,000 of debt. I've been able to skyrocket my net worth. So give them a try and let me know what you think in the comments.